Britt and I are your co-chairs for all the programs that will be going on at our meetings. This means all the demos and the artists that we're having demo. And I'm going to make a quick rundown of those so you know what to expect this year on the meetings or for our demos. Tonight we have Georgia Kandiko. And everyone knows Georgia. She's wonderful and so much fun. I took a class at Georgia's house a couple of times, and that's probably the most fun I've had at a class ever. So anyway, Georgia will do tonight, and I'll let her introduce herself in a moment. In November, we have Catherine Herding, and that will be here at the Zeller studio and also on Zoom. So I'm sure most of you know who Catherine Herding is. She's a wonderful gal, and I've studied a lot with her. You can learn so much from her. In December, we have something new and special that Britt and I have planned for the society. It's going to be a Zoom online critiques by Dan Monlock. And Dan is a wonderful painter. He lives out by St. Cloud. I've studied with him a few times at the Arboretum, and I have recruited him to do this critiquing session for us. So that night, instead of Dan demoing a painting, what we're going to have the membership do is we're going to have an open period that people that want to on the members can submit a painting for critique. And of course, we can't take 100 paintings. We figured Dan could do maybe 8 to 10 in the period we've allotted him for that meeting. And so if you feel like doing that, please feel free when we get the information out to you to submit a painting. And because it's on Zoom, if you're going to get picked to be in the critique, you need to be on the Zoom call so Dan can also talk to you over Zoom. So anyway, that's something new and exciting that's coming that we haven't had a chance to do before. Yeah, thanks. In January, we'll have Andy Evenson with us doing the demo on Zoom. And you know his beautiful landscapes with their soft colors and his wonderful methodology, his technique that he uses. He'll be doing a demo in January. In February, we're so lucky to get Keiko Tanabe. And I don't know if you all know who she is, but she's a wonderful, wonderful painter, known worldwide. And she'll be demoing for us. I've asked her to demo maybe an ocean scene because she lives in California. And I really like water. So anyway, that will be coming, so don't miss that. And then in March, we have a young, really vibrant, new young artist who lives in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And her name is Brittany Tuff. And she will be doing a demo she's calling Whites and Stripes, where she demonstrates translucent whites. And this will be on Zoom. And she does a lot of fabric painting, not on fabric, but on watercolor papers, fabrics that are draped and stuff. So that'll be very interesting. You'll get a chance to see her new work. And then in May, once again, we're going back to the Parley Lake Winery. And Daniel Kuchenbecker, who is our current vice president, he will be doing the plein air demo that night. So this is what we've got lined up. It's a great lineup, and I hope you all can enjoy it. Thank you. You got Zoom going? Got it going? Okay.
Oh, we're on.
Okay, Georgia's taking over.
You gotta, so I, yeah.
Just go look. Okay. Actually, pretty simple sheets. They add people over there and massively increase the force of that air.
Now can you hear me? Thanks. I put this on first time behind the thing so you didn't have to see all that. But that's okay. I'm Georgia Kandiko, and I'm delighted to be here tonight talking about how did I work out my way to present in such a way to get into national shows and international shows. But let me back up a little bit and tell you just, a little bit more about me. I started my painting career like in my 30s. And I was one of those people called to watercolor. That's the best way I can describe it. I had to do it. I thought, I don't know where this comes from. I didn't major in art in school, but I always did haunt any galleries that were nearby, museums. Like, I'm from the Chicago area, and I would make my friends ride the train to go see the Art Institute downtown. I mean, so it was always in me to just be intrigued with art. But I didn't draw well, and I'd see other people drawing better than I did and thought, well, I guess I can't be an artist. But I was always interested. And then in my 30s, I thought, I've just got to hold a brush. I've got to paint. I want it to be watercolor. So I even knew the medium. So I jumped in and started taking classes when I could, but I was working, I had 3 little children, and so life was busy. But as time went on, I found that I just couldn't leave it alone. I'd do more and more, and then people would ask if they'd buy my work. So that was incentive. I think, oh, yeah. Then the first time I was showing at a community center, someone called and said, oh, we'll meet, blah, 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 at the community center, and bring your card. And I said, oh, okay. Hung up the phone. I've got to make a card. I was so excited about that. You know, so, I mean, for me, it was all kind of an awakening of, well, so what do I want to do with this? I really love it. Then I was lucky enough to meet different friends, and of course, you're attracted to what interests you. I met people who like to paint. Can you still hear me? Okay. So I was lucky enough to meet a couple different groups that we would just get together and paint, and they influenced me. Of course, they were members of the Minnesota Watercolor Society, so eventually I joined the society, and then got a little more serious about taking workshops from people. I would see their work at shows that were through the Watercolor Society, or, you know, one time a Transparent Watercolor Society show was in the Twin Cities. And I know those had a big effect on me, thinking, I'm going to just try to make this go farther. In fact, like if I could work and have that be my work, wouldn't that be the coolest thing? So, you know, the kernel was there, but, you know, I thought I never went to art school. How is that going to work for me? But in the Watercolor Society, I thought, you know, I could get it. Like when I got into my first juried show, I was like, oh, this is cool. And that definitely made me feel like, yeah, I'm going to pursue this as much as I can. So still working, still, you know, not putting all my chips in the I want to be an art teacher bag. That wasn't in my mind at first at all. The way I kind of got into art was I painted well enough that people would buy my work, and then I connected with, I just got up my courage and walked into 4 galleries. Canada Gallery up near Grand Marais, one in Nisswa that's no longer open, one in Waconia that's no longer open. The 4th one was over in Rosedale or Roseville, somewhere over there. And I walked into those places, brought samples of my work, and they were delighted. They wanted to sell my work. So I started painting whoever owned the gallery was after. And I got so busy. I thought, I need a new gig, because I wasn't making much money. Gallery owners take half. And I was so busy, I needed more like chat time, more connection with artists. So that's what motivated me to think, okay, I'm going to ramp up and really try to get accepted into more shows so that I have something that I can, you know, tell people, yeah, you should take my class because I achieved this. So through the Watercolor Society, I think it was in 2009, I got my signature status. That meant I got like the 5 or 6 points in however many years you've got to do it. And once I did that, I started entering a little bit broader. I entered what's that one? The signature status that I have in Red River. Red River, that's a little more regional. And the first time I got in, I was like, oh, that's so exciting, wonderful. But there was a difference in a regional show. The competition was a little stricter. So I got my signature status in Minnesota pretty quickly, because not only would I get into juried shows, I won awards. Red River, I didn't win awards right away. That kind of came slower and later. I also had a group of friends that we would go to Kenosha once. Transparent Watercolor Society had their shows just stay in Kenosha, because for a while they traveled, and I saw one that was here. And that put it on my radar as far as thinking, I'm a transparent watercolorist. That would be my goal, is to get into TWSA. And I didn't even think of signature status yet. So now I'm going to back up to my website a little bit. I haven't updated it because I had a couple of little health things come up. My vision wasn't very good, and it was really hard for me to work on my website. So it's correct now. I did it today because I've got 3 sets of glasses I need now. So I had office glasses on, and I can do that now. But I do have signature status in Transparent Watercolor Society, and then the other completely transparent national and international societies called Watercolor West. I have signature status in that one too. I've got the elements and the principles up here. And I know I've actually taught workshops on that, and I really had to think about how to do it, because there's a lot of words that you say and it can be a snoozer. People want to get into it and paint and have the things happen. But when I started paying attention to the principles and elements of design, that made a big difference in my work. And then I found that I was getting more acceptances at the national level. And I will just talk about this. I can't get too close to that. The first ones here, line, shape, color, value, texture, space, and form, are the elements. The principles are a little more ephemeral words, but I'll talk about the elements first. In my mind, the first 4, line, shape, color, and value, are the ones that I consciously put in my mind. When I see lists of people's elements of design, there's some people have space instead of, and they leave out form. They're all important to consider, but the first 4, line, shape, color, and value, I really have in my mind. So that's the base. The principles all reflect on the base, and the principles are dominance, contrast, gradation, balance, rhythm, emphasis, and then unity and harmony together. So I've put an awful lot of time into thinking about that as far as how it reflects on my work and how do I incorporate those ideas when I'm working. So tonight, what I have up here are some paintings. A couple are finished, one's in process, because I thought it would be helpful for me to address, just touch on the process I go through when I'm actually in my studio painting and what I'm thinking about. Before I do that, though, I wanted to talk a little more about, I thought I'd work this in as I go on. You don't want to hear the organ recital, but I've had a tough couple of years. So I needed a total knee replacement and arthroplasty of the thumb. And I knew I needed the knee I needed for like 30 years, the thumb for like 20 years. I just put it off because I knew how bad they were going to be. And it has been a challenge. I'm healing. I had to, after last summer, teaching 2 workshops, at the end of the last one, it was in July, I just thought, I can't teach anymore. I have to get healthier because everything's hurting me. And the implications are, it's taking me a while to get over it. So it was impacting my painting, impacting my life. I just thought, I have to put that on hold. So I'm at the point right now where I think, I don't know if I'll get back to teaching. It's something I love, but I have to complete the recovery. So, I'm not going to go into everything else, but there was more. The vision thing I alluded to a little bit. It's all complicated, but it's all good. Now I'm healing. I'm working on it. So, back to, let's talk a little bit about Joe. My husband's going to be my helper. He's my Vanna White tonight. I think bring me the artful docent first. So in preparing a painting, and that one's loose for a reason, and I didn't fix it to anything, it's just loose for a really good reason. The motivation for this painting was my husband and I were at the Keith Haring exhibit at the Walker in the summertime, and we met this docent, Kat, who's kind of a different kind of a guy, and we got to chatting because I love the artsy types. And I asked him if I could take his picture, and I asked if I could paint him, and because he was so interesting looking, and he was delighted. So I did that, and I thought, when I was finished, I thought, it's a fun painting, and I need to go back and get something. It meant something to me. I loved Keith Haring in the 70s, way back, I mean, way before I was painting. He was one of those street artists that I really liked his work, and that idea that his tag of art is for everyone. I told you I was kind of an art nut way back even before I was a painter. I really liked his work. I thought it was a step better than most of what I considered craft in the street art realm. You know, I'd look at it and I think, it doesn't really hold up in my mind as far as being real art, whereas Keith Haring did. Well, so when I met this guy who was so interesting looking, what I did was painted him the way I thought, but I chose my colors carefully. This is one of Keith Haring's large paintings, and I chose it specifically because when I put my red sheet up, what you get is a view of this done in value. It's one of the elements of design. It shows me my value pattern. So before I attempt a painting, what I'll do is do a little thumbnail sketch, putting in the components that are really important to me to include, because I have to feel motivated to it. I am the kind of artist that I paint what I love. I don't paint for a judge. I want to make cool paintings that mean something to me and are beautiful. And I thought Kat was kind of beautiful. And I thought Keith Haring's work with those colors was beautiful. So for me, it was like, yep, ticking my boxes of me being motivated to work on it. And I do it in black and white because I want a value pattern. So this one is kind of like a star pattern. You see all the squiggles in green. They read, I don't know if you can see that very well from where you are. Can you see that? His face is light, his shirt is dark. So the value pattern is like a star value pattern. And what I have up here, the principles and elements of design, and if you want, over the, like if we have a break or when we're finished, you can look at how I've put little hints on them. You can take pictures of them with your cell phone if you want. But it's important for you to know how important this is to me and what a difference it made in my work. I've also printed off some of these. You can take pictures of them. I think I have about 10 of them here because people like it on their cell phones. If they have a piece of paper, they lose it or throw it away or whatever. So 10 lucky people could have one. The others, just take pictures of them if you want. But know that it's not like I'm right when I say, for me, in the elements of design, line, shape, color, and value are more important to me. It's not that I'm right, they're just more important to me. You as an artist might have a different way of looking at, the interplay between the principles and elements of design. But you can spend a long time thinking about it. But what I did is not only spend a long time thinking about it, but I actually apply it to the work. And those are the points that are really important to me to include. So value, color, the line work in this guy, Keith Haring's line work, I just thought it was fun. And it was a cool way for me to approach it. When I finished the piece, looked at it, put this up by my face, looked it through, thought, yeah, I've got a strong piece here. Like composition-wise, it's interesting and it holds my attention. I entered it in the state fair. Okay, I really wanted to get in, but guess what? I didn't get in. Now, if you're going to enter any show, national show, Minnesota Watercolor Society, if you're entering a juried show, the first thing I've done with myself, and I found this to be really helpful and calming and kind to myself, is I think, how bad do I want it? Now, I would have loved to have gotten in. I've gotten in the state fair a couple times. You know, it's fun to get in. Yay. But if you want it too bad, you shouldn't enter it. Because the downside is it going to destroy you? Is it going to make you depressed? Are you going to feel like a loser if you don't get in? You have to develop an attitude for yourself about how you feel. So when I wanted to get into Transparent Watercolor Society, I wanted it pretty bad. Some years depending on whatever else was going on in my life, if I wanted it too much, I didn't enter that year. I thought my frame of mind's not right for it. The only time I'll enter a big show or the state fair or any juried show is when I can, say to myself, I'm satisfied with my piece. If the judge doesn't jury it in, it's not a bad reflection on me. So that steely core of liking your own work, I think, is the best way through avoiding what's going to bum you out and make you feel not good about yourself and impact how you make art. So I don't want anything to shut me down. And I also know there's a subjective aspect to jurying shows. A judge has to think, what am I looking for? And everybody has biases. Like, I like really colorful art. That's who I am, or I just do. So if there's somebody who likes, very reserved art, they're maybe not going to be so attracted to the kind of art that I'm putting in. And you just roll with it. Okay, so here's the thing about getting signature status that was a real buoy for me. With both Watercolor West and Transparent Watercolor Society, you have to get in 3 times before you're considered for signature status. And the first time you can think, oh, lucky me, it was a fluke. The second time, it was like, hey, I'm getting some momentum here. Third time, I thought, yeah, okay. I've achieved a goal that I had, which is signature status. And, it's something no one can take away from me. I've invested the time, and it's not a fluke. In fact, one of the years that I got into Transparent Watercolor Society, Linda Baker and Lauren McCracken were the judges. And they both do realistic, very realistic work. And the year I got in and got signature status, no, I guess that was number 2 for those 2. I was one of the only sort of abstracted piece. It was pretty, it was florals, but it was abstracted. And I talked to Linda Baker about it. She said, we needed, I'm glad I'm talking to you. She said, I'm more of a representational artist. And if you know Lauren McCracken's work, it's photoreal. He's like, it looks like a photograph. But I didn't have the chance. He was kind of mobbed most of the time, but I did talk to Linda Baker. She said, both of us were looking to have a well-rounded show. And we really appreciated being able to jury your piece in that had a great deal of abstraction in it. So I thought, well, lucky me. It's not like I planned that. I just felt really strongly about my piece and felt like it was a good one. Another painting that the first one I got into Transparent Watercolor Society was one that the first year I entered, it did not get in. And I was like, huh. And I don't even remember the judges, they always have 2 for Transparent. I don't even remember the judges that didn't jury it in, but I felt strongly enough about that painting, I entered it the next year, because it can be 2 years old. And that's how strong I felt about it. I thought it's a good piece. And it got juried in the next year and won an award. So I thought, okay, trust your instincts. And that's what I did. But my instincts were developed, and this is what I do. I go through and think about the line, the shape, the form, the color, the you know, this one is a fun one in a lot of regards, just because it meant so much to me because of Keith Haring and that guy. Meeting Cat, you know, such an unusual person. He thanked me for talking to him, which kind of broke my heart in a way. But he also shared with me this, working as a docent at the Walkers, the first job that's enabled him to live on his own. And I mean, so he's in a really good place. It was just a fun story. Another one that, could you bring me the lioness? Okay, this is what I entered into I saw where Minnesota Watercolor Society didn't fill up right away for the non-juried show. A lot of times since I've gotten in juried shows, I save those spots, but I also think the Watercolor Society likes the income they get from having those shows full. So yeah, you can put this one back. I wanted to talk about this one for a couple of reasons. I would put it in a juried show, but Minnesota came up and I thought, well, I'll put it in. It's a UBO. So Tammy asked me about it. She said, what is that? UBO is a plastic sheet that you can paint on, and you have to handle it very differently from the way you handle regular watercolor on regular paper. So with UBO, and I don't know, is Jim Turner still here or did he go home? Yeah, he just got back from Paris. If you want to have the quick way to get used to working on UBO, take Jim Turner's workshop, make him do a UBO workshop. I used liquid watercolors. When I say they're liquid, they're called anhydrous. The brand I bought was Dr. P.H. Martin. I know Winsor & Newton makes anhydrous watercolor too. But I just bought the set because it was easy and, you know, comes in a cool little dropper bottle. And you could mix up regular watercolor. It's just you're going to be mixing for a long time if you buy tube paints. So I liked having that set of the anhydrous. I was lucky enough, my husband took a photo workshop in Kenya, Africa, and I went with him. And I took lots of pictures with like a point and shoot camera because I wasn't interested in, you know, fancy cameras and all that equipment. But this was a lioness we saw with her cub, and she was lazily swatting the vines that were below her. And I mean, it was just such a beautiful image. We were in, you know, trucks that they act like we're squirrels or something. But watching those two and the scene that was around and the beautiful day it was, I thought, I'm going to paint that. So again, I thought what I'd do is put the red sheet up so you can see what I wanted was the light on the two, the mother and the cub. And then I took some chances. When you're working on UPO, like this isn't a painting that I could put in Watercolor West or Transparent Watercolor Society. They don't accept work on UPO. The other thing is, this is so fragile when you're finished with a UPO painting that if you go with just the heat of your breath, that can activate it. So they're very, very fragile. So what you have to do is spray them with these mediums. And I'm going to show you, I'm watching the time. By the way, I should know, how long do I have?
Usually do like 8 to 8:30.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to show you how I actually fix these in place. But I don't have a UPA one, but that doesn't matter. So I'll walk you through it when I actually demonstrate how to fix something to a board, because it's the exact same thing I did with this. But you do have to put an acrylic medium on it, and then technically it's not transparent watercolor anymore. But because I knew I was going to be putting clear acrylic on it, there were some areas that Dr. P.H. Martin anhydrous watercolor wouldn't like really stick to the paper like forever. Every time I moved it, I was like, you just wore off again. So I was like, ah! So I actually took acrylic paint. And there were a few little spots, like a couple of the cloudy spots, and boy, it turned out really pretty when I was willing to put in some of the acrylic paint into these areas. Now, when you're working with acrylic, Andy is also a chemist, and she can tell you a lot about this, but I minored in chemistry. I do know that with acrylic paint, if you break too many bonds, it's not going to act like acrylic paint anymore. So what breaks the bonds is if you put too much water in it. Like you'll hear you can put up to like 20, 30% in and really not affect it. But it's, I sometimes do that for experimental
At your work.
cool looks. Like I came up with a way to do a cool elephant. And I put too much water in on purpose so that I'd get a little bit of resist, but I also wanted watercolor to go through into it. So I'm experimental sometimes. But for this, I use medium to thin out the acrylic paint. And so when I did that, it just gave a beautiful look in some of these areas for the sky. So that was just a bonus for me. I thought, oh, it turned out really fun and pretty. So it's one that if it doesn't sell at the show, now I've been lucky enough to sell quite a few paintings at shows. So I will do exhibitions, but I don't knock myself out to manufacture the opportunities. Years ago, I used to, have shows at community centers and banks, and it was a lot of dragging things in and out and all the costs for framing. So I don't exhibit as often as I used to. I'd say I sell quite a bit at shows. So some of them get away from me sooner than I expect. Like I had one that I put on a big price because I wanted it for a while. I thought, this is a good one and it's going to go to a lot of shows. But it sold it for $2,000. So I was like, well, for $2,000, I'm happy. So, you have to put all that in your mind. When you're entering shows, you have to think about, what would I be happy to sell it for? What would be that point where you think, oh, well, okay, I'm happy not to put it in any other shows if I've got a good buyer. So I just wanted you to think about that. But we'll talk more about presentation because I think that's really important. And then the last one I'll show you is, I'll trade you. It's in process. And I just thought I'd share with you what I do and what's fun. My idea is for the one in process that's not finished yet, is I put suet out and a blackbird, the male blackbird, came to it right away, and then I saw his mate. And they had a nest in our back area, and we saw them every day. We would go have cocktails on the dock. We're lucky enough, we live on a lake, and by the Arboretum. And she was so tame acting. I was like, be scared, be scared. I didn't want to tame her, even though we were the source of the food they were eating. But this is the gate at the back of our house. There's an iron gate there. The previous owners had it put in, and I love it. I have grown this hibiscus tree for so many years. It's one of those, I think about it, worry about it a lot, but I put it in here because the male would land on it, and then sometimes the female would be rummaging around near him. So I saw that, and then I thought, I've got to paint them. I'm going to put them in a painting because it was just so much fun. It was like I got to know them, and they were my pets for a while. So the idea is, I want this here, I want some illusionary quality, like you can see through some of the leaves, and I'm in the process of working that out. So as I put this gate in, I actually drew it. If you come close, you can see my pencil lines, but I didn't know if I was going to like the look of it. And I wanted a really pretty background that you could see behind the gate. So I put that in first, even though I'd drawn where the gate was going to be, started putting the gate in. I had to mark my places for those leaves so that the ones that are going to have that see-through quality, so that I can do that. So some of the leaves, I might make these see-through later. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. So I'm leaving options open. So when I'm planning a piece and I think it's going to be really cool, like the instant I painted that male bird, that was the first thing I painted. I was like, oh, he's cool. He's beautiful. And then I painted the female and I was like, oh, so cute. Hi. I mean, okay, so what am I doing? I'm sharing with you. I love the piece. I'm engaged with it. I've got that energy for it. That's what I do for these pieces that, and you probably think, how can you sell them? If you love them so much, it's incentive to paint more for me. I've thought all this through. So the ones that, like I did, I've done a couple of fuchsia paintings with hummingbirds. They're so beautiful. How do I sell those? It's more incentive to paint again. So that's just in me. I have friends that have stacks under their bed, stacks of beautiful paintings under their bed. And I think, no one's getting to see them. They've got too many to enjoy them. I'd rather have mine out there. Okay, so what I want you to take away from tonight is, do your work, figure out what it's going to take to bring your work to the next level. If it's like exploring principles and elements of design, if it's taking more workshops where you get it a different way, however, whatever it takes for you to do that. For the people that say they're self-taught, for them, just sitting and painting, this stuff occurs to them. There's not one good way. What you have to do is figure out for you what's going to work for you and what will bring you joy when you do it. So that Marie Kondo thing, throw everything away unless it brings you joy. There's a kernel there that's really important to think about. Surround yourself with what's going to be joyful. It'll show in your work. And I think my exuberance, the fun I have, shows in my work. That's what it's all about for me. So now, in the interest of getting through everything that I wanted to present to you tonight, this is a piece. I did not take this photograph. I'm going to be in a show here at the Zeller Gallery, and I think we all decided to paint this dog, all the participants did, and we were given a few options, and Deb showed me hers first, and she painted one of the views that I thought, well, I love hers so much I can't paint that view because there's no view that I'm going to be able to be creative about because I love what she did. And if on your way out, you'll see her version of the dog. So I took a different picture, and I thought I would have this be illusionary. But as I was painting, the painting talked to me. So I was going to have something illusionary going on into part of the dog and around the background. But the picture I had was a dog with a crown. Now I changed the crown a little bit. I gave him a beautiful, really golden crown. And I knew this wasn't going to be a show entry because I didn't take the photograph. Most of the shows that I've entered, I've read the prospectus, and I'm going to come back to this. I've read the prospectuses carefully, and they say if you're going to use a photo image, you have to have taken the photo. You can't do any published, you can't ask permission from somebody who took a photo, you have to take it, or you have to work from life. I did not take this photograph, and I have this integrity thing. I mean, people get around things. I've seen some paintings that I think they have to live with themselves, but they didn't take that picture. Or they'll manipulate a photo with apps on their cell phone, and then they'll paint that. Most of the societies are beginning to explicitly say that's not the nature of what we're trying to do here. Anyway, for me, it's an integrity issue. So once I started working on this, I knew it wasn't going to be a showpiece. So it was fun for me to think, okay, once I had this dog, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if he was at a party and he was the last dog standing? So that's the idea behind, that's going to be the title, Last Dog Standing. So all these guys are sleeping. Who are these dogs? The ones in the background are all commission paintings of dogs that I've done before that people gave me, the opportunity to go photograph them, like my neighbor's dog and, different dogs that I've painted for commission work. So I had images of people's dogs that I thought I can manipulate them and have them all sleeping off the effects of a wild party. So by the time I was finished, I thought I wanted to work as a real painting, but it was a lot of fun. The other thing is both this one and the Keith Haring, that one, the Artful Docent one, Those are on hot press paper. So sometimes I'll change it up and not use cold press or rough. I'll use hot press paper. Why do I do that? I like to keep things interesting and creative and fresh. And if I'm in a rut, like the bird, I wanted to use traditional arches. It's 140-pound cold press paper. I just felt like doing it on that paper. But this hot press is a little different to work on. Yupo's way different, but very exciting. So I would say, if you're like me, give it a whirl. It'll charge you up a little bit. Maybe you'll have some breakthroughs. Okay, so back to what am I going to do? Tonight, in the interest of your breathing and not giving us all lung cancer, what I did was sprayed this before I came in. So I thought I'd bring these. Golden has reformulated their archival varnish. So it's acrylic varnish. I brought both of these. I have the matte and I have the gloss. Okay. Matthew Bird, the guy who does photo real work like Lauren McCracken, I saw him in Watercolor Live do a demo on how he fixes his paintings that he doesn't want to put plexiglass on and, frame them regularly. So what he did was talk to the people at Golden, the chemists that said, start out with gloss, give it a spray, but if you're working on watercolor, you have to be really careful to do light coats to begin with. So what I did was brought this outside and pretend I'm spraying it now. I give a really light hazy coat and I'll do it for you just as I did for this one. So it was this long. Press the button, go like this, go like this, go like this, go like that, and then wait about 10 seconds. Yes? I hold it up because the spray cans clog a little bit. Okay, the other thing is, the reason I only use Golden is you can get cheaper ones at the hardware store, but sometimes it comes out like you're spitting, like a pleh. And I think, now I've got a big, I don't want to glob on a transparent watercolor because it's going to activate the paint. So what you have to worry about is activating the paint as it's still, even if it's dry, if it's too wet. That's why I say after 10 seconds, then I go again. Pretend I'm spraying, pretend I'm spraying, pretend I'm spraying. That long. It's a matter of seconds. Then I wait another 10, maybe 20 seconds. So I do it all 4 ways. I give it that light coat waiting. Then I put it away and let it dry for a couple days like that. Get it out and do the same thing again, only this time be a little more rigorous. So I'll give it maybe go slower so that so what I want to make sure is it's all protected from what I'm going to do next. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is after the second day, when I've sprayed it again, I let that completely dry. And I don't saturate it so much that it looks wet. I just saturate it enough that, I'll take a drip of water, and if it beads up like that, and if I rub it and I don't get any paint on me, I think I'm good to go. Because it's protected with acrylic. It's got a whole cover of acrylic on it now. Then something that I just think it gives it a better look is Dorland's Wax Medium. So this acrylic spray, it could be that's all you do, but I've talked to a lot of different artists that said this is another form of protection. So what I have here is a soft cotton, a little glove. I could use a soft cotton cloth, but this makes it easier. And I got a whole box of these. They were from Linhoff. I know Joe Linhoff. He took classes from me. Anyway, he must have left this at my house. So I have a glob. It's kind of like if you use Crisco or something like that. And I'm going to rub it all over my painting, and I look at my hands, no paint. So you don't want too much, but you'll know as you move it around if you need more. And the first time you do it, you think, oh gosh, I hope I don't wreck this. But I've done it enough times that, and I'm careful enough when I do that painting or the spraying. But let me back up again and go back to, I told you I start with the gloss. That gives it a more of a shine. Then I finish. The second day I do it, I use the matte because I want it to look regular. I don't want it to be so shiny. Like when I take a picture of this, I don't want it to look like, you know how acrylic paint sometimes gives a reflection? Yeah, I don't want that. Okay, so now what I'm doing is just rubbing it in, and then, okay, now it's even everywhere. Now I'm just gonna rub it until it all goes in. And I do have a ring on. Usually I don't have rings on when I do this, so because I don't want to scratch the paper by mistake, but I'm going to be careful. As you rub it in and keep rubbing, now you don't want to put a huge amount on, but I try to put just enough. It's almost like it's drying and getting worked into the surface good enough that it's not like you really even see it. Okay, so for this painting, I kind of hope the owner of the dog, it was, I think, Karen Knutsen's hairdresser's dog. I hope her hairdresser comes and sees the show. Because I think Deb's turned out so cute. And this one, I think, turned out so fun. I just wanted to see what we did with those photographs because they don't really look like the photographs anymore. I mean, we took our own visions and turned them into art, which I think is really a cool, fun thing to do. So not everything I paint has to be geared for a show, but I still put my all into everything I paint. Okay, so that's a really good point. Joel asked, how do you decide if you're going to, oh wait, let me turn this over now. So I can hardly feel the wax. And if I put water on it now, it really beads up. I mean, it's just a nice protection for it. While I tell you about how I decide that, I'll repeat Joel's question. What I'm going to do is paint water on the back of this for a reason. This is hot press paper. It's got a little bit of ripple to it. And I have found when I'm going to prepare this and stick it to a board with this is soft gel. Doesn't matter if it's matte or gloss. It's another Golden Company medium. I love preparing art for display this way. I can't do it for Transparent, Watercolor Society, or Watercolor West if I want to enter those shows with a piece because they don't accept it. But for other opportunities to show my work, I love to do it because I don't have to put glass on it. I can put it onto a board and you never have to worry about reflection. It's easier to send. Plexi scratches so easily. Every time I get a painting back that has plexi on it, in the shipping there and getting it back, it's wrecked. I have to change it out. So, and it's expensive and it's time consuming. So that's bugged me enough times that I have, when I can, I mean, I've sold an awful lot of work. I taught for years at the Arboretum. I've sold an awful lot of work there, and I many times displayed everything prepared this way. People are accepting it. They really enjoy having them this way. And at a couple of the Watercolor Society shows, I've done a few series of paintings with sea dragons. The Minnesota Zoo has sea dragons. They're like seahorses, except they look like they have seaweed growing off of them. And when I have painted those, I love that you can get close. I've done some that were totally transparent. One sold at the show at Watercolor West. They're cool. But I think it's even more fun that you can get up close and personal and enter the world of the painting easier, I think, if you do that. Okay, so what I've done is painted water on the back. It won't go through to the other side, you know that. Even like if you're doing this, if you're flattening a painting, you know, to get it nice and flat, if you're just going to frame it traditionally under plexi or glass, a good way to flatten work is get the back wet like this. And usually what I'll do is make a sandwich. I'll put paper towel on board, like a board like this. I put a layer of paper towels down. I put my painting like this, get the back wet, put another layer of paper towels, and then another board on top of it. And I make that sandwich, and I put something really heavy on top. So it's like a sandwich with something heavy on top. That flattens it. Usually the next day it's totally flat. So that I've learned that you don't have to worry about water going through if you're using good grade watercolor paper. I know one time I had some weird paper and water went through all the way. That was not 100% cotton rag watercolor paper. But this one's ready for me now to put the gel gloss on, because what it did was relaxed it enough. So what I do, I have a nice big acrylic brush. I put the glob on it, and I want to get really close to the edges, because that's what, if anything's going to lift up on you, the edges will. So I have this nice acrylic brush that has those edges that get really sharp. It's nice for painting too. This is soft gel. So it's like matte medium but thicker. And it's not that you could like leave the lid off matte medium and have it turn into soft gel. The chemistry is such that this is, just in your mind, you can tell yourself it's like using thick matte medium. So when I get these wet first on the back and then wait, and then it happens quicker with hot press paper. When I wait till it's like a little beyond when it just looks matte, you know, when you've got something wet and it's gone into the drying process, and when it's at the matte stage where it looks velvety, that's when you can put the soft gel on. If you skip the soft gel, you have to work faster. I mean, if you skip the soft gel. If you skip getting it wet, you have to work faster. If you get the paper wet first, it gives you a little more window of opportunity, because what you want to do is get soft gel on your paper, soft gel on the board that you're going to use, and put them together and then brayer it down. And I'll do that next. But I bought myself some time, and then I might need to give myself some time. The humidity in the air makes a difference. Some days I think, whoo, it's pretty humid today. A lot of times just looking in the mirror will do it for me, because I have curly hair. If it's really curly, I'll have a little more time. Okay, it's dry enough in here that I have my spray bottle. I'm just going to give it a little, I don't want to give it too much, because remember that funny thing about mediums, you don't want to add too much water to them or they'll quit acting like what they're supposed to be. And I can tell because I've done this before. A little more here. So as I'm putting the medium on the board, I want to recap my suggestion, which is for entering shows and taking your work to the next level, do your work, figure out what it's going to take to, I want to put this kindly, to increase the professionalism that your work shows. And what looks professional? It doesn't mean it's serious looking. It means it looks like it's skillfully done and you achieve something that brings your viewer to another, to a place where they can really enjoy what you did. So I've seen, work that have funny topics. I usually go for beautiful work. I don't need my work to be like important social commentary or whatever. There are enough people making social commentary that I just want to create beauty and have it be fun and joyful and have people take a journey through the piece that I've created, and see something that was important to me and, enjoy it. So do what it takes to increase the professionalism in your work, and you're the ultimate judge. I am in a critique group, and sometimes I ask for critiques on pieces, but there's that steely core in me that I know when I want to put one in a show. I know when I feel like it's to that level. And I guess that's the best way I can say, when you have that feeling, you'll know. And you know what? Everyone who enters those big shows, they're all good artists. All the work's cool. It's all good. That's why it's such a, I can feel this already drying a little, so I'm going to give it a little more in that dry spot. Okay, there is also a quality, it doesn't have to be bone dry everywhere. It was a good thing to watch watercolor live. This was, I think, the first year they did it. That's when I had started doing these preparations. And when Matthew Bird was talking to that golden chemist, and the chemist said, it doesn't have to be absolutely, you can let it get dry a little bit. It doesn't have to be absolutely wet to adhere. The bonds of the acrylic, he said, you could even let them get where you think it's too dry. They'll still hold. Okay, so what I do find sometimes is the watercolor paper stretches out a little. If you're stretching watercolor paper, it expands a little. You don't need to pull it. It's not like you have to do this to it. It just does it all by itself. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I have this plastic that I was working on. And remember, this is protected with the acrylic. But now what I'm going to do is take my brayer and I start from the middle and work out all ways. And I've lived to regret when I've skipped this step. I can feel a little bit there. I also have a trick I do sometimes on the very edges. I'll just make sure by putting a little extra of this gel gloss on any edge that, and usually those darn edges are what's gonna try to come up. But Matthew Bird's interviewing the chemist who said, if you leave them set with something heavy on top, which I'll do that tonight with this, he said that what the acrylic will do is kind of a magic thing. Even if it seems dry to you, it's not really dry chemically yet, it'll touch and then form that bond. I almost brought in a piece that I have that I actually had to, yeah, this has stretched. So I'll tell you that in a second. I almost brought a piece that I had that got damaged at the Arboretum. I did an eagle, and it was done this way, and someone must have come by with something sharp or maybe a pole, hit the edge that I'd painted with that black acrylic. So I took it off, but I could not get, and I put that one on canvas. I couldn't get the canvas off the back because it bonds forever. It becomes like, that's what happens. So I did pull it off, and I started pulling the threads of the canvas apart, and I thought, well, why am I doing that? I'm just going to leave it like this. So I've got it, and I don't know what I'll do with that eagle because it was an immature bald I saw in my backyard, in the fall, late fall. So what I would do now is put it upside down. I can see where the paper stretched, so I will wait till it's completely dry, but I'll put it on my table, and I've got clamps. One of my sons gave me the neatest little clamp thing. There are two of them. You can put them down, and it pushes something, like if you clamp it to a table, it's like a woodworker's clamp. But these are nice. They've got softer edges so they don't damage anything. Anyway, I will clamp it to the table, and then I'll put this on a cutting mat, and I'll cut the little edge that is extra now. Because I'd cut it perfectly to the size of the wood, but I knew, yes, Ginny?
I am amazed, how do you cut it not only perfectly to the size of the wood, but so that it's square and you line it up so it's square?
I did that pretty quick, didn't I? I've got a good eye.
I mean, I always cut them bigger than.
Oh, yeah. Well, usually I'm going to have to cut a little off if I've done it this way. Once in a while, I haven't had to cut off that funny little edge. If maybe I cut it a little less. But even what else did I have to cut? Well, so anyway, yes? 5 minutes? Sure. Okay, so preparing for a show. This, once it's flat and on there for good, it's impossible to get it off. It's on the board forever. If it never sells and you get sick of looking at it, what you could do is put another painting on top. So it's not like you're going to have all these boards sticking up and you think, oh man, I've got way too much stuff and no one wants to buy it. Put another painting on it. So I'm very practical about how I use my mediums, I'm experimental. Deb Zeller was nice enough to bring this painting in. It's one of my faves. It only got into one show before Deb bought it. And you never know where your paintings are going to show up. It's also the top seller at Parley Lake Winery for the summer wine. It's just been a great fun project to have this, and my husband reminded me to bring a bottle, and Deb brought in a bottle so that we could show you how fun it is. It's just a really cool, oops. You never know what's going to happen with your work. So this one was in Watercolor West. It won a very nice award. I've got a special brush from Rosemary Brush Company as the award. I was so happy to have this sell because it went to a friend I love. So that makes a difference to me. I was happy to take it out of competition circulation. It had already done well. It actually got into 2 juried shows. The first, I can't remember where, you had to wait a little while because I had to get it back. But that one I could put it in not for sale. And so what I do is, if I want it back, like I told you, I put a really high price on it. And then, but I think the second one it was in, I had committed to it not for sale. That's what I could do, is have it be in a show not for sale. Anyway, it's a Deb Zeller painting now, which I am thrilled about. Well, thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful. I didn't want this to be like a class where I talked about the principles and elements of design. if you want to take pictures or take the handouts, that's fine. I do have some work I brought. That's mostly my plein air work. That means paint outside and do the whole thing there. Once in a while, I'll tweak something when I get home, but that really jazzes me, mostly to be with my friends. You know, like I did one competition, I was in the, I think I might go over 1 minute. I did the Hudson Plein Air competition last year and I didn't like the pressure. So I sold one of the pieces, you had to have 3, 2 had to be like architectural. I did that and I thought I could still hang out and come paint with my friends, even if they're in a competition. I just don't like that kind of competition, you know, so I like entering the shows. That kind of competition feels good to me. Plein air events, not so much. That I probably won't do more of that. But I will plein air paint because I think it's so much fun. And not all of them work, but the ones that do, that, you know, I think, oh, that reminds me of the day. So anyway, I do have those things up there if you'd like to see them. I do take Venmo and PayPal or checks or cash, but I don't have change. If you want to take pictures of these or look at those little cards, some have explanations on the back for your edification. It was just important for me to do it, and like I said, in my teaching time, I tried to keep things like moving, and yeah, we're gonna get to painting, but it's important to have attention given to those ideas when you're painting. Okay, any questions before we go? Yes, Julie?
If you spill any of your soft gel onto your board, do you have to clean it up with water?
Okay, what I did, that's a great question. Julie's question is, if you spill soft gel on the sides of the board, do you have to clean it off right away? I don't, because I put Varathane on first, so it's already protected. Any soft gel that got on the edges, I could rub it right off. I don't just use untreated wood for the edges and go through this, because I've had that happen where I've gotten some of the soft gel on, and then whatever I've done, it always shows a little bit. So my practice now is, my husband was outside reading, and I brought this outside and put the 3 coats of Varathane on the edges, just so that I could wipe things off easier, and it's protected from getting a spot. Do you have any other medium questions? Yes? Okay, the cheapest board you're going to find is if you go to Dick Blick and get the standard sizes. I've got a place, and I could email it to you if you want, where this guy will do custom. So the lioness, that's Yupo, it's 20 by 26. And I didn't want a border on it, so sometimes I fix them to the board with a border, almost like it's matted, but not really. And those, I have a guy who will do them for me, but they're expensive. And like Dick Blick, you can't get any odd sizes. You have to go online. So I found a guy who does beautiful work. But like I said, it's pretty expensive, but not as expensive as getting a frame and the plexi and the foam core and all that. It's cheaper than that. So it's a cheaper way to frame. And yeah, and I do have some small ones over here. I've done this with these kinds of things too. These are transparent watercolor done where let me take it out. I should have circulated these. And this happened to be, it's thicker. It's 300-pound paper. So you can feel a little ridge on it, but it's on forever. You can't get it off. Yeah, this is a canvas. So you can tone the canvas any way you want, slap it on there, and it's forever. But they're fun little things to do, and then you don't have to worry about the plexi or the glass and the frame and the, yeah, so, and like, I taught a lot of classes at the Arb where I would make them do it. I would make them paint the painting, stick it on the, go through it. A lot of people didn't want to put their painting, they wanted to practice and get better at it. And of course, I didn't, I'm not the police. But this was a demo I did, really quickly, and
Do you notice a difference in sales? Do buyers prefer one over the other?
I think some people just want the regular thing. They want glass and a frame. When they see something like this, those who love it really love it.
Little ones, I would think, would really go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do much selling in gift shops or galleries that sell this. I kind of got out of doing that, but I think they would have sold like hotcakes. It's just time consuming. And like I said early on, I wasn't making that much money because the gallery owners take half. And I don't want to sit there all day and be the owner. I want to paint, so I was just honest with myself. How do I want to do this? What's fun for me? What keeps me so jazzed I can hardly stand it? I wake up and I think, I can't wait to get back to that bird. Pardon me? Oh, I know, my time's up. Do you have any other questions before we break up? Thank you all for being here. It was so fun to see your faces.